Good morning, everyone. Now, is that me? Good morning, everyone. Good. It's lovely to see you. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to turn in our gray hymnal to hymn number 69, Give Thanks. Hymn number 69. Give thanks for the corn and the wheat that are reaped, for labor well done, and for barns that are heaped, for the sun and the dew and the sweet honeycomb, for the rose and the song and the harvest brought home. Give thanks for the mills and the farms of our land, for craft and the strength in the work of our hands, for the beauty our artists and poets have wrought, for the hope and affection our friendships have brought. Give thanks for the homes that with kindness are blessed, for seasons of plenty and well-deserved rest, for our country extending from sea unto sea, for ways that have made it a land for the free. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, a liberal religious community. We're not on? It's on.
Okay, sorry, it doesn't sound like it's projecting.
Is this on? Now we're on. Okay, the button was pushed. Who knows what happened? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, a liberal religious community founded in 1865. Our commitment to justice, equity, and love has been unwavering in all the years since. I am Barbara Lynn, one of this congregation's lay worship leaders, and I am delighted to greet you and invite you into our circle where all are welcome. If you are new to us, please know that our welcome is wide and all-embracing and unequivocal. Ours is a space where you may bring your whole self and know that you are cherished exactly as you are. If you are a newcomer joining us online, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat so others may greet you. And for those of you here in person, we invite you to a newcomer welcome held directly after the service in the Redmond Room. And as you exit the double doors here, the Redmond Room is found as you enter the hallway to your left. And there, friendly UUs will be waiting for you, ready to engage in dialogue with you about our faith and this congregation. And for every newcomer everywhere, I invite you to please take a moment to fill out our newcomer survey found at UUAA.org/newcomer survey. Next Sunday, September 8th, marks the end of our summer schedule as we return to 2 Sunday services weekly at 9:30 and 11:30 a.m. As is our tradition, we will celebrate our annual water communion next Sunday, and everyone is invited to bring water to add to our communal bowl. You may bring actual or symbolic water from your summer travels, your favorite river or lake, a garden hose, or even your kitchen sink. And should you forget, pitchers of genuine UUAA water will be on hand for your use. And remember, that's 2 services next week at 9:30 and 11:30. As we move more deeply into our time together, let us take a moment to consider Labor Day and its meaning. On this holiday, we lift up the work that each of us contributes to keep the wheels turning in our society and in the greater world. The image that comes to my mind when I consider turning wheels is a cog, that little piece that keeps the motion going. Now, in our culture, a cog often represents a small and faceless drone, a little non-entity lost in a giant machine, lacking control or agency. But let's consider instead the role of the cog as fulcrum, as that essential leveraging energy without which the whole grand enterprise of our shared life would collapse. Each small piece, each small voice, each and every one of us is necessary and precious. And our job as Unitarian Universalists is to recognize that truth as we honor all work and as we labor to make all workers honored. Let us celebrate Labor Day by building a world where everyone can find fulfilling work with living wages, decent benefits, and a deep sense of pride and self-respect. Let this be our labor. We are gathered in community. We are gathered for worship. In our first ritual act as we gather, we join UUs from around the world in lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith. Our chalice flame burns steadily, the light that guides us home, and a beacon to those seeking sanctuary among us. The spark of life, the animating spirit that dwells within each of us, is renewed again and again as we gather. In the light of our chalice, we find truth and love, energy and peace. We find each other. This morning, Edward and Carolyn Norton will kindle our flame, and I invite them to join us on the chancel now. And for those of you watching online, you may join us by lighting your own chalice or candle and entering your location in the chat so we may see the reach of our light. Our words will soon be appearing. And together let us say, we light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Edward and Carolyn. Dear to my heart is the fact that we are a covenantal faith. We have no creed to which we must all adhere. In my own experience, creeds are fixed and unyielding. They stifle our questions, thwart our searches, and turn us away from our deepest spiritual yearnings. Our faith has no such strictures. We are free to explore, to experience, to believe or not believe as our journeys lead us to our own truths. Unhindered by creed, we are bound by covenant, the promises we make to each other to guide us in our shared life in community. Week after week, this renewal of our vows reminds us that our covenant is something we return to again and again, however many times we may stray. A broken covenant is a promise waiting to be healed and taken up again. Whether this is your first time or whether these words dwell in your heart, please join me as together we say, the spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
I've had some really amazing bosses, present company included. And I've had a few that were not so wonderful. Haven't we all fantasized at one time or another about telling the people in charge exactly what we really think? Airing our grievances and demanding respect and gratitude, not to mention fair compensation. We all deserve to be recognized and celebrated for the diversity of gifts we bring into the world, and that includes our workplaces. In our story for all ages this morning, we meet a boy named Duncan, a boss of sorts, who gets an earful from some of his employees. The Day the Crayons Quit. Written by Drew Daywalt, illustrated by Oliver Jeffers. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them. Hey, Duncan, it's me, Red Crayon. We need to talk. You make me work harder than any of your other crayons. All year long, I wear myself out coloring fire engines, apples, strawberries, and everything else that's red. I even work on holidays. I have to color all the Santas at Christmas and all the hearts on Valentine's Day. I need a rest. Your overworked friend, Red Crayon. Dear Duncan, all right, listen. I love that I'm your favorite crayon for grapes, dragons, and wizards' hats. But it makes me crazy that so much of my gorgeous color goes outside the lines. If you don't start coloring inside the lines soon, I'm going to completely lose it. Your very neat friend, Purple Crayon. Dear Duncan, I'm tired of being called light brown or dark tan because I am neither. I am beige and I am proud. I'm also tired of being second place to Mr. Brown Crayon. It's not fair that Brown gets all the bears, ponies, and puppies, while the only things I get are turkey dinners, if I'm lucky, and wheat. And let's be honest, when was the last time you saw a kid excited about coloring wheat? Your beige friend, Beige Crayon. Duncan, Gray Crayon here. You're killing me! I know you love elephants, and I know that elephants are gray, but that's a lot of space to color in all by myself. And don't even get me started on your rhinos, hippos, and humpback whales. You know how tired I am after handling one of those things? Such big animals. Baby penguins are gray, you know. So are very tiny rocks. Pebbles. How about one of those once in a while to give me a break? Your very tired friend, Gray Crayon. Dear Duncan, you color with me, but why? Most of the time, I'm the same color as the page you're using me on, white. If I didn't have a black outline, you wouldn't even know I was there. I'm not even in the rainbow. I'm only used to color snow or to fill an empty space between other things, and it leaves me feeling, well, empty. We need to talk. Your empty friend, White Crayon. Hi, Duncan. I hate being used to draw the outline of things. Things that are colored in by other colors, all of which think they're brighter than me. It's not fair when you use me to draw a nice beach ball and then fill in the colors of the ball with all the other crayons. How about a black beach ball sometime? Is that too much to ask? Your friend, Black Crayon. Dear Duncan, as Green Crayon, I am writing for 2 reasons. One is to say that I like my work. Loads of crocodiles, trees, dinosaurs, and frogs. I have no problems and wish to congratulate you on a very successful coloring things green career so far. The second reason I write is for my friends, Yellow Crayon and Orange Crayon, who are no longer speaking to each other. Both crayons feel they should be the color of the sun. Please settle this soon because they're driving the rest of us crazy. Your happy friend, Green Crayon. Dear Duncan, Yellow Crayon here. I need you to tell Orange Crayon that I am the color of the sun. I would tell him, but we are no longer speaking. And I can prove I'm the color of the sun, too. Last Tuesday, you used me to color in the sun of your Happy Farm coloring book. In case you've forgotten, it's on page 7. You can't miss me. I'm shining down brilliantly on a field of yellow corn. Your pal and the true color of the sun, Yellow Crayon. Dear Duncan, I see Yellow Crayon already talked to you, the big whiner. Anyway, could you please tell Mr. Tattletale that he is not the color of the sun? I would, but we're no longer speaking. We both know I am clearly the color of the sun because on Thursday you used me to color the sun on both the Monkey Island and the Meet the Zookeeper pages in your Day at the Zoo coloring book. Orange, you glad I'm here? Ha ha ha! Your pal and the real color of the sun, Orange Crayon. Dear Duncan, it has been great being your favorite color this past year, and the year before that, and the year before that. I have really enjoyed all those oceans, lakes, rivers, raindrops, rain clouds, and clear skies. But the bad news is that I'm so short and stubby, I can't even see over the railing in the crayon box anymore. I need a break. Your very stubby friend, Blue Crayon. Well, poor Duncan just wanted to color. And of course, he wanted his crayons to be happy, and that gave him an idea. When Duncan showed his teacher his new picture, she gave him an A for coloring and an A+ for creativity. The end.
Good morning. Thank you, Stella. How do you follow that? What a fun story. Like all those beautiful colors, we come together to support the work of this community, which includes the work week after week of caring for one another, helping over time bring up our young ones in our community, also going beyond the borders of this community into Washtenaw County and beyond, helping build and work toward greater justice in our wider world. All of that work is made possible through your generous financial contributions. In just a moment, the ushers will come down the aisles with baskets to collect this morning's offering. If you'd like to give electronically, you may do that as well by texting 73256, texting UUAA to 73256, or you can give online at uuaa.org/giving. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received. How wonderful to have Mario Soluxano with us this morning. Thank you, Mario. I invite you to please rise in body or spirit as our ushers bring forward this morning's offering. And let us join our hearts as well as our voices as we say together these familiar words of dedication. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you. Please be seated. This morning, as we share in the spirit of Labor Day weekend, we'll be hearing from several speakers about their own experiences with the concepts of work or labor. First from Reece, then Reverend Mandy Beal, and then myself. Please join me in welcoming Reece, one of our lay worship leaders, to the pulpit.
I was a high school math teacher in Los Angeles in the early 1990s. University High School was a big school, and kids came from all over Los Angeles, really all over the world. So we're talking about a pretty diverse group of students. I was pretty happy at this job. I always loved mathematics. It was my major in school, and I'm definitely a people person. And a high school is a community. There's athletics, theater, band, choir, art. It was a no-brainer that this was a suitable profession for me. I taught math for several years, even showing up to work right until the day I gave birth to each of my children. Francesca was a student in my pre-algebra class that I was teaching. She was one preoccupied student. She was not at all inclined to listen to me explain why and how math is used in everyday life. This was 30 years ago, so there were no cell phones. Francesca's preoccupation was makeup. Painting on lip liner and lipstick, mascara, foundation, concealer, the whole thing. Most of the young ladies had their share of makeup supplies and would be sneaking in touch-ups. But Francesca took it to another level. She used her backpack to store a whole counter of beauty products. Once she pulled out a full-fledged vanity mirror, plugged it in during the passing period, and put on her makeup. All of this while laughing and socializing with her classmates. Every day at the beginning of class, I had to tease and cajole her to put her cosmetics away, find a calculator, and get out her assignment. One day, Francesca came in early and did not pull out her makeup. She came up the front to see me. She seemed nervous and kind of rocked back and forth. She fidgeted, she looked around, and finally she said, I kind of need to talk to you, miss. Could I talk to you after class? It's really important. So can I talk to you after class? I said, sure, of course. And then she turned and went to her seat. I'm telling you, I was distracted the entire class. Why was she nervous? Why didn't she tell me what this was about? Maybe she didn't because it would take time, or maybe it was serious. Was she going to ask my advice about what to do about a pregnancy? What would I say? What if she was going to share something about being taken advantage of by someone, or a boyfriend or girlfriend drama? Then I thought she might be in some trouble with the law and would confide in me. In my head, I visited many a topic that would concern a teenage girl. It wasn't pretty. I think most of the students like me, so it wasn't a total shocker that Francesca would find me approachable. That I felt very good about. But I'm a math teacher. I know algebra, trigonometry. I don't know how or what to say to a teenager about whatever problem she was having. Teachers, we have to be careful about what we say and do, especially when it's personal. When I got into education in the first place, I never even considered getting the extra training to become a counselor. I have a bit of an empathy problem. I needed a job I wouldn't have to take the drama home with me. So, after class, Francesca approached me. She was a bit nervous, and she painted her long painted fingernails. I don't think she noticed that I was on edge too. So I'm kind of representing everyone, so it's not just me, okay? So, miss, we've been talking, and we all agree. I mean, we know you got 2 little kids at home and a husband, and you're busy and all that. But, miss, you've really let yourself go. I really let myself go. Now that I wasn't expecting. So we decided to submit your name to the math teacher makeover day on the Ricky Lake television show. We're sure you're going to get picked, and we really hope you'll agree to do it. It'll be so cool. We got a whole bunch of signatures. A whole bunch of students signed a document agreeing that I had let myself go and needed a makeover. Of course I agreed to do it, but I was secretly wishing that I would be rejected, that the producers at Ricky Lake would decide that there just wasn't enough improvement to be made. Well, a couple of weeks later, Francesca reported that I was, in fact, rejected by Ricky Lake. I would not be getting a full makeover on national television. So, Francesca and friends wanted to do it themselves. For a few weeks, they came in at lunch, and they brushed and styled my hair. They tried different colors and kinds of makeup. They taught me how to relax when getting eyelashes curled with this metal tool that came way too close to my eyeballs. Marcella, she was in charge of my eyebrows. She cradled my face in her hands, looked at me with concern, and said, "You do realize there's no place in the world where a unibrow is okay." In turn, these young ladies agreed to learn some math. Like how to calculate in their heads a 15 to 20% tip for the beautician or the manicurist. The 1990s, remember when it was 15% and 20%? Yeah. I pushed it a bit and said they couldn't paint my nails unless they could tell me something about the ratios of chemicals in the polish that they would use. I gotta say, Francesca and friends knew what they were doing. I looked good. I needed to keep up the effort. I saw 180 students, more than 180 students a day, most of them having signed this document, and they all had to look at me a lot. I'm not saying I ever curled my eyelashes again, but I did step it up a bit with my newfound knowledge. I also found that I could increase my own effort to make math more relevant to their lives. During our beauty salon lunches, these young ladies actually learned quite a bit of the second semester pre-algebra material they were supposed to learn. I could say that algebra came into their lives right when the unibrow left mine.
One of the most formative experiences of my early 20s was the years that I spent working as a self-employed housekeeper. I was in graduate school at the time, and I had financial obligations that included 2 young stepkids. I needed work that would pay a high hourly wage and be flexible enough to allow me to go to class, keep my gig at the local UU church on Sundays, and have unpaid internships. I knew someone who had found a market in non-toxic housekeeping who was about to move out of town. She left me some of her clients and a few tips on mixing up household cleaners without chemicals, and I was in business. This was in Austin, Texas in the early to mid-aughts. It was a perfect market that was primed for people who would clean your house without chemicals and be a little funky and put on some devotional music in the background. I showed up barefoot and super late most of the time, but I lit some sage and everything was fine. It was just the right service to provide in that place and time. Great timing. It afforded me some truly amazing opportunities. I once cleaned an apartment where Stevie Ray Vaughan used to live, which was cool, yes. I also was called upon to make a room spray for New Age recording artist Deva Premal, for those of you who are into white people who sing Hindi devotional music. That was very popular at the time. I also told Woody Harrelson all about the cleaning properties of white vinegar. I once mopped around the feet of my client's spiritual director, only to realize a few years later that that was Richard Rohr, who is quite famous, just unbeknownst to me at the time. My clients treated me with an air of mysticism that I first took for respect. And I would hear them on the phone saying things like, well, you know, our housekeeper doesn't use chemicals, just a lot of elbow grease. And that made me feel really proud. But then I came to understand that my labor, my elbow grease, was a status symbol for them. And I was just as likely to hear them on the phone saying, oh no, it's no one, just a housekeeper. And that made me feel awful. As the months and the years rolled by working in people's homes, the mysticism that had surrounded the role of this non-toxic housekeeper status began to fade, and so did the everyday niceties. And I began to feel more and more like just another appliance, something in the background that provided a necessary task in the house, but not something you pay a lot of attention to. The people that had once feigned interest in my kids, my studies, what I put in the surface cleaner, had lost all interest in me as a person. And there was no better example of this than someone who had always paid me in cash, one day leaving me a check. Now, normally that would be fine, but she had always paid me in cash, and here we were a year and a half later, and she didn't know my name, and she made it out to Maid. Maid. I just found this on the counter. Meanwhile, I knew that she had gone through a breakup. I knew she'd lost her job, because you can tell these things working in someone's house, but she didn't know my name. Luckily, an I can be turned into an N pretty easily, so I just made it say Mandy, and it all worked out, but Maid. This experience was a perfect encapsulation of how my relationships with clients all changed over time. What always started off feeling almost reverential, there was a lot of gratitude there, eventually changed to a feeling of being taken for granted, being treated less than. And I knew exactly what this was. It was classism. It didn't matter that I came from a middle-class family. It didn't matter that I was pursuing graduate education. I was there to scrub the toilets. And people need to put some space between my station in the home and their station. They are the homeowner, and I was the help. No matter how the relationship started, that was always where it landed. It was strange, and it was an important experience for me. It redoubled my commitment to justice work, to treating everyone, regardless of role or station, the same, as a human being with inherent worth and dignity.
Some of you know that Washington, D.C. was my home for over a decade, which included both my undergraduate years and my first career. So it became a social setting, a scene that I knew pretty well. And in that Washington, D.C. social scene, when you were invariably in a mixer of some sort, in a place that was new, one of the first questions you would always be asked, and if not the absolute first question, one of the top three, usually within 5 minutes or less, would be, what do you do? And this question, I learned, was never purely just a curiosity question of, what do you do in the world writ large? What's your life about? It was a question of social hierarchy. Where do you fall on the Washington, D.C. hierarchy? Do you matter? And let's get this over with really quick so that I can decide if you're not worth my time, I'll move on. Are you one of the thousands and thousands of unpaid interns in Washington, D.C., or are you a principal officer at a government agency or a law firm, etc.? Let's just figure that out real quick. One matters more than the other. This identification of status and worth with one's position, one's role in the DC political hierarchy, after a while of living in that town, it becomes fully internalized. You stop even thinking about it. You stop even noticing how pushy and weird the opening question in social gatherings is. You start to fully feel and internalize that you matter as a human being because of your job or role within the government sector, i.e. within the world. This over-identification of oneself with one's work is by no means limited to Washington, D.C., or the world of government work. It's often a question that comes up in one's early retirement years as well, or in the midst of a major career transition. Who are you if you're no longer a professor, or a nurse, or an executive director, or a head of, or an artist in residence, or a teacher, or a therapist, or even a senior minister? We invest so much in professional identity in ways that are subtle and not so subtle that we begin asking our little ones, our kids at relatively early ages, as we notice their various interests and curiosities, you like that, whatever that is, huh? You think you might want to do that when you're older? And then we start to dream about a future woodworker in our family, or a chef, or a veterinarian, or a firefighter. I have been noticing, at being solidly midlife, probably past the middle of my life in reality, how much we overinvest in the doing roles, whatever they may be. They're not always paid work, right? But they are doing roles. Early in my ministry career, professional doors would at times open. And when they would open, there would be choices, often 3 to 5 possibilities at a time, never only just one. And I'd bring these possibilities to one of my spiritual teachers, assuming that he knows me so well, he'll have insight into which one of these things is just right for me, because I'm confused. I'm really not sure. And so I'd go to him and I'd lay out all the options. Here's option A, it's this in this place, in this city. Here's option B, totally different in another part of the country, and a different community setting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. His response to such inquiries were always a bit frustrating. He'd say, well, you could choose A. B sounds interesting too. C's a perfectly fine option. You could also just keep looking for another year or 2 or 3 years. Not exactly the clarity my heart was longing for. I wanted some magical tea leaf reading. You can't do some tea leaf reading for me? Which job was the right choice? It mattered, at least to me. When I would press him, he would reply that these are all experiences that I could choose, any one of them, the choice was up to me. What kind of experiences did I want to have? In which city? With which group of people? This Mr. Miyagi from the Karate Kid-like answer felt highly unsatisfactory at the time. Surely some of these choices were better than others. How would I know? Many years later, and after having made all kinds of vocational decisions over the course of my life, I can appreciate that some of those choices have been meaningful and beautiful, and others have been hard. Others have been painful. The one constant throughout all those life choices has not been professional identity. That has shifted and changed with time. It has not been a physical location. It has not been a single institution. The one thing that has been constant through all that time and all those choices has been me. Following me all along the way, as I've engaged in work of various kinds, what our culture identifies as work, the real work, the spiritual work of figuring out how to be human has followed me doggedly all along the way. Over decades of living, I have changed jobs, I have changed cities, I've changed even marriages, but the deeper task, the deeper work has followed me wherever I've gone. Who am I when a peer or colleague is getting on my nerves? And by the way, what if it's not a peer or a colleague? What if it's my next door neighbor? Oh, and what if it's not my next door neighbor? What if it's my spouse? And what if it's not my spouse? What if it's the family of chipmunks living in my backyard digging up all my plants? And on and on. And what if it's not about annoyance and patience, but what if it's about uncertainty? I don't know what's going to happen a month, a year, 10 years from now. How do I, as a human being, accept that, work with that uncertainty? What if it's about fear? I don't know what the outcome of our elections in November might be. Maybe I'm holding fear about that, tremendous fear for our country, for even the world, at what the outcome could mean. How do I live with the doggedness of fear that follows me, that keeps showing up? What happens when I'm not getting my way? When my community makes a different decision than I would prefer? When my family needs to make a decision I might not fully agree with, but is best for us? How do I live with not getting my way? Wherever any of us go, whatever age we are at, the task of living into our humanity never goes away. And it is work, it is effortful. That work of living into our humanity, well, it has no pay stub. There's no Employee of the Month award. It just is. And I've come to appreciate it is the work that matters the most. For when our time on earth is done, how are we remembered? We know this, those of us who have been to memorial services or funerals. It's never only the role that is spoken of at those times. Never. Yet it is not perhaps the role, but also how it was lived into. She was the kindest doctor, going out of her way for her patients, treating them like family, taking calls at all hours of the weekend and the evening. They mentored dozens and dozens of future engineers, taking each one under their arm, helping them learn, helping them figure out their careers. That one, that was such a fun uncle or grandmom, always looking for fun opportunities with the little ones in their lives, creating fun out of nothing. Alongside the role come all the adjectives, come all the descriptors. That is how we're remembered. Not the role, but the adjectives, the descriptors. On this Labor Day weekend, I'd invite us to remember that beyond the human doing, that we're all engaged in our own ways, in our own contexts. We are remembered as human beings, the kind of human we are. That striving to live fully and well into our humanity takes ongoing practice. It takes a lifetime. And here, along the way, we create time and space to reground ourselves in the intention to do that, to live well as human beings, to forgive ourselves and others when we fall short, and to find inspiration to be an even better person than we have thus far learned to be. In support of all that good, really good work, I wish each of us a happy Labor Day.
I invite you to rise as you're comfortably willing and able, and turn once again in our gray hymnal, this time to hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life, hymn number 128. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Beloveds, go into this new week like those colorful crayons painting a beautiful picture of the world we live in. Each of you is that, unique in your own journey, unique in the color that you bring to the tapestry of human living. Live into it well, knowing that how we live into it matters deeply to each of us and those around you. Until we are together again, go in peace.